Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Discover Montcalm podcast. My name's Duane. I'm your host and producer. Don't forget, you can find the Discover Montcalm podcast on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and iHeart, as well as going to discovermontcalmpodcast.com. Check out all the episodes. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Today, we are going to be talking about our food source and some of the threats that are going after our food source today. My guest, Jamie, is from Protect Our Produce, and we're going to hear more from her right after these messages from our podcast supporters. Stay tuned.
We would like to thank M1063, WGLM, FM, M1063.com. West Michigan Technology and Design Solutions is your local source for managed IT, websites design and hosting. Check them out at WMTDS.com. At Business Growth Engine, Stephen and his team support businesses through automation and streamlined processes. Go to BuilderGrowthEngine.com. DW Video transfers your home movies, slides, audio, and videotapes to digital. They produce and design websites, create business and social media videos, TV commercials, and family storytelling videos. Visit DWVideo.com to learn more. Welcome to the Discover Montcalm podcast, where we are going to look at the communities, the businesses, the attractions, and the people that make up Montcalm County. Here is your podcast host, Duane Weed.
Hello, and welcome back to the Discover Montcalm podcast. My name's Duane, as I said, the host and producer. And today's guest, we're going to talk about food and maybe some of the threats to our food source today. So, Jamie, thank you for coming all the way from Okemos, all the way up here to talk to us about our food source. And for those of you that are going, how does Okemos fall into Montcalm County? Well, your organization covers Michigan, correct?
That is true. The Protect Our Produce Coalition, and as the name indicates, it's how do we make sure that we have a vibrant and competitive fruit and vegetable industry in Michigan. When you look at this area in Montcalm County, potatoes are a big thing here.
Yes.
When you look, though, around the region here, about 45,000 acres of fruits and vegetables. So it really is an integral part of the economy.
How did you get into the agricultural arena? Yeah, I mean, you've done different jobs, you were telling me. So can you kind of go through growing up? You grew up in
Ionia County on a farm.
On a farm. So that was something that was pretty much, I guess, part of the life. And you followed the agriculture path.
Yep, I did.
Can you kind of give us from maybe not birth, but, a kind of a path of what brought you to where you're at today?
Well, grew up on a farm, much to my folks' consternation. My sister and I both went into parts of agriculture. They had encouraged us because that was back in the mid 80s when, things weren't that great in the ag economy. But I got involved in public policy. So I worked for a state legislator, which he represented Montcalm County. His name was Jack Wellborn. I went to Washington for about 10 years, worked in food and ags kinds of jobs. Then I got married, and my husband was a soldier, and so we went to Fort Riley in Kansas, and I was fortunate enough to serve as the Secretary of Agriculture for the state of Kansas. Much different agriculture. If I had to make a decision out there, I talked to about 5 people, and that took care of it.
Not so much here?
No. Come home to Michigan, we have 300 different commercial commodities. So there's a much bigger and more diverse agriculture in Michigan. I spent some time working in the Michigan Senate, worked for and with Judy Emmons, who represented this part of the country. And then I served under Governor Rick Schneider as the Director of Agriculture for the state of Michigan. I worked at USDA for Secretary Senator Perdue in the first Trump administration. And then I came home, and I now work for asparagus and carrot farmers. And by far, they are the best people to work for. Just really great people.
So you have a little knowledge in agriculture.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
A little bit.
Still learning, right?
Yes.
Still learning.
Yes.
And I say that with a grin. So what inspired you to focus on the produce side, the protecting our food? How did that part come about?
Well, in talking to my growers, asparagus is the first crop out of the ground. I had word from Southwest Michigan that they've got spears up.
Okay.
But it was hearing them talk about the problems they're having with labor. And so about 2009 or so, they started to notice that there weren't as many migrants coming from Texas and Florida, that they would follow the crops and come to Michigan. And so they had to move to a federal program. It's called the H-2A program, but it is a way to bring legal non-immigrant seasonal workers to Michigan. They, in our part of the world, they come in late March, early April, and they stay through apples.
Okay.
And so those rates, the labor rates, there's a minimum wage that you have to pay that's significantly more than the state's minimum wage. Plus you have to pay for housing and for transportation. So all in, we're up around $30 an hour that we're paying for people, and we just can't compete.
Okay.
When you look at produce that's coming in from Peru and Mexico and even Canada, their wage rates are so much lower than ours are. And when wages are 40 to 60% of your expenses, we had to do something to help them continue to have their businesses.
So Protect Our Produce started in 2024, you told me?
Yes.
And what are some of the biggest threats to our ag industry today?
Well, I think, from the Protect Our Produce side of it is just really that labor rate. We're at $18.15 an hour. It's gone up 60% in the last 10 years,
Okay.
which is significantly more than the general economy. And when the workers are making more than the growers making, and the growers taking all the risk and making all the investments, you've got something bad's going to happen. I've got a lot of young growers. That was the other thing that really drew me to asparagus and carrots. And when I have young men and women saying, I don't know if this is something for my children, because I don't want them to have to take on the debt that they'll have to take on and not have an opportunity to make a profit, that hurts my heart. That
I can see that, but as far as being a consumer, what happens if these places go under?
Right. And what happens is there was a Michigan State study here recently that talked about what would happen if we lost our specialty crop industry. We would lose, it's worth about $6.3 billion in economic activity. About $3.1 billion is at the farm gate. So the other part, the $3.2 billion, is in all the ancillary businesses that service farmers. So if you talk to any farmer, they probably, in specialty crops, deal with 25 to 30 different businesses in their local communities. And what the study showed is this integrated nature of specialty crops, that they require a lot more labor. So you've got suppliers, processors, and the people that work for them, they buy groceries in town. They, shop at the local stores,
Right.
Go to the local restaurants, that kind of thing. So you have this ripple effect. And in specialty crops, it takes about 3 employees for every 8 acres, depending, asparagus is more because it's hand harvested versus potatoes that are mechanically harvested. Mm-hmm. But then when you look at row crops like corn, soybeans, wheat, it's like 1 or 2 people for 1,000, 1,500 acres. So it definitely needs more people. And all those people buy things.
Right.
And all those people work in places. And so when that starts to pull back, when you get to a point where you don't have the critical mass of something for a processor, for example, then there's 100 people that worked at a freezing plant for frozen vegetables or frozen fruits that now don't have jobs.
Right.
And so there's just this effect. And then I think for consumers, it is when there are only a few places in the United States that are good for growing fruits and vegetables. And if you look at a map of where fruits and vegetables are grown, California, Oregon, Washington, mm-hmm. along the coast, yep. Michigan, Wisconsin, along the lakeshore, New York, and then in the South, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida. What do they have in common? shoreline.
Yeah, I was going to say water.
Water. Exactly. And that helps keep the weather temperate so that you're not killing off the trees and those kinds of things. So when we don't have American agriculture, when we don't have that in Michigan, you can't move it to Iowa or move it to Illinois. Yeah. And so then where do we get our food? We get our food from foreign countries. Nothing wrong with that. You know, we can't grow bananas. We can't grow mangoes. But when we have to rely on other people for the most nutritious things we eat, that's a problem.
And I can see where that's a big problem. And, you know, now, like you mentioned, some of the owners, younger, deciding, or a dad or a grandpa going, you know, I don't know what the future of this is going to be. You know, can these farms compete on a corporate level, you know, across our nation? You know, can a small local farm contribute? You know, when you're here in, let's say, Montcalm County, what are some initiatives that might be in place that are available to these farmers, whether they're the big corporate or whether they're a smaller organization?
I think what we're working on with Protect Our Produce is just convincing Congress. They're the one, they created this problem and they can solve it.
Okay.
It is the first thing we'd like to see is a pause on the wage rate. So let's pause where we are, 18.15. We'd like it to be a little less than that, but it is what it is. And then let's work out how we make this program more usable for people. So that's one thing we're doing. You know, the other thing, there are many other government programs or assistance for people. Like if you're a smaller farmer, you know, selling to the local school district, there's a thing called 10 cents a meal where the school gets subsidized by the state so that they can pay more, because it does cost more for local. And so, you know, encouraging them to purchase from local businesses for the school meals and for in our case, fruits and vegetables for the school meals.
Right.
You know, there are other USDA type initiatives for hoop houses that allow here in the north where we can, you know, you can put up a hoop house and you can grow your vegetables or your, not fruits, but vegetables longer than you otherwise would be able to. So there are things out there to help, but it really is a fundamental thing that we don't have automation. You know, where we're short on automation in fruits and vegetables is harvest, and that's, you know, 60% of your labor costs.
Right.
And that's for a place like Michigan with so much diversity and smaller acreages. You know, if you look at a field here in Montcalm County, let's say, and compare that to pictures of fields you see in California, wide open spaces, you know, the equipment's different. And so manufacturers are not going to make equipment that work for us at the same time that they're, you know, the markets in California, Oregon, Washington, where the big open fields are. So we need to fix this labor problem, because perhaps in my child's lifetime, we might see, you know, harvest automation, but somehow we have to have a bridge to get there. Okay. And that's where freezing the wage and fixing the program so that it reflects realities, what a farmer's ability to pay is, and so that they can have a profit as well.
So are you running into any conflicts as you're going through this? Is it kind of, you know, open? I mean, is our people in government going, yeah, we need to listen? I mean, what is your, you know, finger on the pulse, so to speak?
People in Michigan are, because we have laid it out there, laid the facts out there, that, you know, and it's not, you know, I did the math, Duane. I have a daughter. She's got 4 years of experience and a college diploma. An H-2A worker makes more money than she does. Okay. Because that H-2A worker doesn't pay for housing. They don't pay for utilities. They don't. Just boom, boom. Yep, they send their money home, which is fine. They work hard and they earned what they've made. But there's an imbalance there when our own our own people. My daughter pays rent. She has to pay for her car. She pays car insurance, etc. So we've been able to kind of share these stories with our delegation in Michigan, and I think pretty successfully. We've got some issues with folks that are in the power structure in the Congress who have tied this workforce issue with immigration.
Okay.
And this isn't about immigration. Now, I will say, Zippy Duvall, who's the head of American Farm Bureau, said, we'll deal with the border and then we'll deal with ag workforce. Well, crossings are down. And so have we solved the problem at the border? Now it's time to take care of our own people and solve this problem. So
there's not a magic answer.
No.
Or a magic solution where you can just wave your wand.
No, we'd have done it.
A long time ago.
And this whole program, the where it is right now, started in 1986, a long, long time ago, and it hasn't changed because people could never come together. But I think the rest of the country, particularly in the South, their wage rates have now gotten up near ours.
Okay.
So they're feeling the pain along with us. So there's more folks that are willing to do something about it. And we just kind of have to get over this. This isn't about illegal immigration. These people are legal. Mm-hmm. They're seasonal, and they're non-immigrants. They come here, they work hard, and they go home.
It's their job.
Yes.
And they travel, just like a lot of people
Salesmen.
from here.
Yes.
Yeah, they're going around the country doing what they can. So you've got some challenges.
Yes.
It sounds like you're working through your challenges. And it's nice to hear that locally, within our state, that it's not just it's getting some traction.
Yep.
That it's not falling on deaf ears, as they say. These kind of things don't happen overnight. And you said it's been a long time, but things change. Is there anything that we can do ourselves? How can the average person, help? Is there anything that individuals can do?
I think, individuals as consumers, pay attention to the labels. When you go to your local grocery and you're buying, say, frozen vegetables or frozen fruit, look on the back.
Yeah.
Where did that vegetable or fruit come from? It probably won't say Michigan, but it'll say the United States. And make it a choice to buy what's produced in our country. That's one thing.
Okay.
Fresh vegetables, again, there's a chart. I think it's the Department of Health and Human Services in Michigan has when things are in season.
Oh, okay.
So know when things are in season in Michigan. For example, asparagus.
Yep.
We're going to start harvest here in a couple of weeks. It'll be in the stores from around Mother's Day until the end of June. Look for the purple band that says product of the USA.
Okay.
And you can know that that's from Michigan because this is the season. Apple season in the fall. Again, look for the bags at the store that say Michigan produce. That's a real way that Americans and Michiganders can help support the industry is buy local.
Yeah. It makes sense all the way around, whether it's your meat, whether it's your produce, your vegetables. I think it's just one of those things that the more that we can do here, there's a lot less. I think there's processing in all of it, but more locally, and as you said, we don't grow bananas. We really don't have that,
That's okay.
Michigan's not good at bananas. Now with asparagus, is Montcalm County part of that? Or I think that probably there's different growing
regions.
Regions, fruit happens more here than here, but it's, is Montcalm County in that asparagus? Or?
Not anymore. You have the right soils. You have the sandy soils that asparagus likes, but over the last 30 years, it's kind of consolidated. So about 80% of the crop is grown in Oceana County on the lakeshore, and then the rest of it down in Southwest, so Cass County, Van Buren, Berrien, in that area. Used to be more widely across the state. But potatoes are the big thing here in Montcalm County.
Right.
Quite a lot of those.
And on top of potatoes, what are some of the other, I guess, contributing factors that Montcalm County brings to this produce?
Other vegetables. So I believe there are like root vegetables here, like some carrots, parsnips, turnips, that kind of thing. And then I don't think there's much fruit. There might be some small amounts,
Right.
but not. Most of that is on what they call the fruit ridge. So
Yeah, you just go a little
north
west.
of Green. Yep, go a little west.
Just go a little
you
west.
go in Newaygo County and you get into all the good muck soils over
Yeah,
there, and
for
you
carrots
get
and onions
yes.
and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So, it kind of travels. But the big thing, as you said, look for the blue label. Made in the U.S., made in Michigan. Pay attention to what is on there and try to choose, one over the other. Helps keep that industry in our county
Yep.
vibrant.
Yep, and it keeps that money circulating in the local economy, supports the farmer and supports local restaurants, the grocery store, the fertilizer and chemical supplier, the processing plant or whatever.
Irrigation, whatever
Yes,
it happens
yes.
to be. And they're local and they employ, some of these farms around here, whether they employ 5 people, 20 people or whatever, they're employing people that live, work, and play here.
Yep.
So I can see that. As we wrap this up, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to bring to our awareness? Like first, and we probably should have done this from the top, and those that are used to the podcast, on the YouTube video, it has your contact information on it all the time throughout the whole podcast. Can you tell us, do you have a website? Where can we go
Yep.
to find more information?
Yep. We have a website, protectourproduce.com, and there's an opportunity to subscribe. So I don't give the list to anybody, but I will provide an update every couple of months. Or if there's something like I shared this MSU study that just came out, I shared with that list. And so kind of keeps you up to date. We keep our content pretty fresh. We've got, I think, a really good number of videos that we've done with growers that talk about kind of how this issue is affecting them. And so there's just information about how does this compare to the state's minimum wage? What does this look like compared to imports?
Right.
What is it that we're asking for? So that would be the place to go. And you can email me from there as well.
So protectourproduce.com.
Yep.
Going back to that last question, is there anything that you want to leave us with?
No, I just, again, encourage people, buy Michigan, buy American if you can. Encourage businesses to, your school to take part in the 10 cents a meal program or to source their items for their school lunches from local folks or from people in Michigan. And, just kind of be open to these issues and understanding and learning about how it affects your local economy, particularly in rural Michigan.
Sure. Well, Jamie, thank you for making the long drive from Okemos all the way up here. But this is an issue that is not just in one county.
Right.
This is a statewide, and it's nice to know that there's people like you that are trying to put it forth, so that, you work with people, you gather that information. So protectourproduce.com. Go there, you'll grab a phone number, your email address. If you got any questions, follow up. My name's Duane. I'm the host and producer. You can find us on discovermontcalmpodcast.com, as well as on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, as well as on Pandora, Apple Podcast, and iHeart. Go to discovermontcalmpodcast.com. Check out all the episodes. Follow us, comment, share, and remember to buy and shop locally.
Connect and follow the Discover Montcalm podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Check out all our episodes at discovermontcalmpodcast.com. We look forward to featuring your business, community, nonprofit, events, and more. Contact Duane at 231-250-9624, 231-250-9624. Thank you for tuning in and following the Discover Montcalm podcast.